Pokemon. Our battle companions, our pets, our friends, and also our food, apparently. I decided to see which Pokemon are edible and which aren't, and we're starting today in the Kantos region because that is where the Pokédex starts. So starting off was everyone's favorite little grass type frog thing, Bulbasaur. The little bulb on its back, fun fact, that's a seed. Also fun fact, Bulbasaur can go for days without eating, just living off of the nutrients off of that thing. So yeah, you can eat a Bulbasaur. In fact, people love to have the stuffed bulb as a very nutritious, nice little meal. Ivysaur's up next in this little line, and you know, the blossom blossoms a little bit on his back, and it's very fragrant, very nice. People like to make a little tea out of it. And then Venusaur, when it blooms fully, the flower petals release an aroma that calms human beings. And so yeah, people like to make a nice little calming herbal tea. And you can make frog legs out of every single one of them. Charmander would be next. And yeah, you can eat a Charmander. You gotta cut off its tail, you gotta kill it first, but you can eat a Charmander. Charmeleon, yeah, you know, you can eat that. And don't feel bad, because you might feel bad about killing it, but know that it is known to both without pity and mercilessly use its claws to tear apart its prey. Without pity. That's an actual entry. So Charizard actually used to be hunted specifically for eating purposes. Why might you ask? Well, it was known to start, like accidentally, unintentionally start forest fires. Forest fires. People started, you know, hunting it, and as a result, they started eating Charizard flesh because, you know, you have an overabundance of it. What else are you going to do with it? But then, back in the 1990s, Professor Oak made it like a starter Pokemon in the Kanto region, and that made it more popular with trainers, and now it's not very much a common practice anymore. Squirtle. You can eat a Squirtle. Make some nice little Squirtle soup. Very good. Very yummy. War Turtle, though? Okay, so you can eat a War Turtle. Right, you can eat them. Make some soup, again, like I said about Squirtle. But, so this thing is said to live for 10,000 years. And its tail, it's a sign of longevity. So it's become really popular with elderly people and really popular as their pets. So you can eat a War Turtle, but you might want to run from the elders because they might try to hit you with their canes and their walking sticks and whatever else they have and just verbally abuse you. A Blastoise is just a big, heavy version of a Squirtle and a War Turtle. So yeah, you can eat it. You cannot eat the jets on its back because those are made of steel. That's actually a really good soup for big gatherings of people because it is a huge Pokemon and it is very heavy as well, so it's a lot of meat. So I recommend a Blastoise soup for, like, you know, big gatherings like family reunions. Fun fact, you can eat a Caterpie. It's not going to be pleasant, but a good old little stir-fry Caterpie, nice, crunchy even. But you do want to cut out the little antenna on the top of its head, the red thing, because no. You can eat a Metapod too, and my favorite way to eat a Metapod is to use its, you know, its iron-like shell as sort of a bowl or like a pot and put it over some fire and just sort of cook those innards within it. Just makes you a nice little stew. It's sort of like the Metapod shell, sort of like a bread bowl. It's just like eating clam chowder in a bread bowl. Butterfree, yeah, you can eat a Butterfree. You gotta cut off its wings though because they are covered in water repellent toxic dust. A Weedle, yeah, you can eat it. You gotta take off the stinger on its head though. Other than that, you can eat it, fine. Stir fry like Caterpie, nice, crunchy, good texture. A Kakuna, no, you can't eat that. It's just a bunch of innards and it has a poison barb. So there's not really a place where the poison would run through in the innards that's easier to take out because it's not hardened yet. No, you can't eat a Kakuna. It's just a poisonous little blob. You can't eat a Beedrill, and I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this, but it is mostly just made up of poisonous stingers. So no. don't eat the big bee. It's not good for you. You're gonna get paralyzed at the least. Next on our list are very simple. Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot. You can eat them. They're birds. You can eat them. Some nice little fried Pidgey legs. Get a nice little Pidgeot wing. Pour that hot buffalo sauce on it. Yeah, it's very pleasant. Again, Spiro and Firo, birds. They're birds. Same as Pidgey. Yeah, you can eat them. Ekans and Arbok, you would think, no, you can't eat them. They're poison types. That is wrong. They're venomous. They're not poisonous. So yeah, you can eat them. A very good way to roast them is spit roasted on a stick, so that way you make sure you get it all even. Very good. Very nice. So, Pikachu, you can eat him because its electricity within its body is stored solely in the two little pouches on its cheeks. So all you have to do is get rid of that. You get rid of the electricity, you don't get electrocuted, you're fine. However, Raichu, on the other hand, has 10,000 volts of electricity going through its entire body all the time. No, don't eat that. Sandshrew, you can eat. You're gonna have to tenderize it because it's some tough meat, but you can eat it. Sandslash, same story. Tenderize it. It's fine. You can eat it. Nidoran, Nidorina, and Nidoqueen, you can eat them. You just gotta, go around the poisonous spikes and everything and take out their poison sacs. Yeah, you can eat them. Same thing goes for Nidoran, Nidorino, and Nidoking. Can't eat them. Cut around the poison bits, but you can eat them. Clefairy and Clefable may look like giant little marshmallows, and you may think, yes, those are edible. I thought so too, except they're not. Some people believe that they are from outer space, and I don't care what they look like or how tempting it is. Don't eat things from outer space. Also, it is a rare Pokemon that is barely seen. No one really knows about it. So they don't actually know what's on it. So no, don't eat the big pink marshmallow. A Vulpix you can eat, but a Ninetales, however, I would recommend not eating it. You can eat it. I just recommend not doing that because it is said that if you even look a Ninetales in the eye, it will curse you for 1,000 years, and that curse will go on to your ancestors and next of kin. So you can eat it. I just don't think it would be a good idea. On to the other pink marshmallow that we have, Jigglypuff. You can eat a Jigglypuff. So your little marshmallow dreams, there you go. A Wigglytuff, yeah. Sadly, it's actually very common to eat Wigglytuff because its pelt is really soft, so it's hunted for its pelt. And then the meat is then sold to shops and everything. So Wigglytuff is actually a very common meal. Zubat and Golbat, you can eat them. I wouldn't really recommend a Golbat because it mainly sustains itself off of blood of other people and stuff, and that just carries diseases. An Oddish is edible and very yummy. You want to braise some Oddish? Very nice. Some braised vegetables. Just put it on in there in like a ramen or something. Very good. It's a very good substitute for bok choy, actually. A Gloom is edible, especially the honey that it drools, because even though, it stinks really bad and you can't really get close to it without wanting to faint, it's still edible. Just hunt it from afar. The Vileplume, however, you gotta cut the top off because its petals on top filled with poisonous spores. So you can still eat it, just cut the top off and you're good to go. Paris is edible. People use the Tochikaso mushrooms on its back to grind up and make an herbal medicine. And the same thing goes for Parasect with its big mushroom. Even though the spores are poisonous, it can be boiled down and used as a medicine. You cannot eat Venonat because it secretes a poison all over its body. You can, however, eat a Venomoth. Just like a Butterfree, you gotta cut off its wings, because also like a Butterfree, its wings are covered in a toxic poison. You can eat a Diglett, however, the farmers might chase after you and chase you off with pitchforks if you try, because Diglets are actually really good at making nutritional soil ready to like plant seeds in, so farmers love using them on their farms. Also, no one actually knows what a Diglet fully looks like under the ground. Who knows? Buff Diglet could be a thing. Dugtrio, basically the same, it's just a triplet version of Diglet. You can eat a Meowth. Also, you can sell the coin on its head. Persian is also edible, and again, you can sell the jewel on its head as jewelry, but do all this in the black markets because it's sort of frowned upon. You can eat a Psyduck. You'd probably be putting it out of its misery since it's constantly racked by migraines, and speaking from experience, those are terrible. And I would also like to be put out of my misery for that. But yeah, no, you can definitely eat a Psyduck. You can also eat a Golduck. It wouldn't be putting it out of any misery though. In fact, it would actually be cruel, I think, to kill and eat a Pokemon that finally evolved past its horrid daily migraines. So I would judge you for that one. You can eat a Mankey, and you can eat a Primeape, but you gotta be careful about doing this, because if you even look a Primeape in the eye, it will chase you until it catches you and beats you. So you gotta make sure you do it right the first time, because otherwise, just prepare a funeral or a will in advance is all I'm gonna say if you decide to go out hunting a Primeape. You can eat a Growlithe. You can also eat an Arcanine, but like some others, not recommended. This one though is because it is thought to be seen as a legendary Pokemon in many cultures. It could cause an uproar and cause you to get exiled or outcast, or in some places maybe burned at the stake. You can eat a Poliwag. You can eat it raw. You can eat it cooked. Recommended you eat it cooked, because otherwise there's like a little bit of a parasite that could be in there, and that could cause some not fun times in your stomach. Poliwhirl, you can eat it. Poliwrath, also yes, because it's basically just an angry version of Poliwhirl. An Abra, you can eat. However, a Kadabra, you cannot. Back before they found out that radium and radiation was bad for you, yes, you could eat a Kadabra. But then afterwards, since it emits alpha particles, which are a form of radiation decay, no, don't eat the Kadabra. Please don't eat the Kadabra. You're gonna get radiation poisoning, and you could just start melting. You can eat an Alakazam. Since its brain cells are just infinitely multiplying until it dies, and it remembers everything from birth to death, it is thought that Alakazam brain is a good treatment for Alzheimer's and dementia. You can eat a Machop, and you can eat a Machoke, but you gotta tenderize the meat first. You either gotta braise it, boil it, tenderize it, something, because it has very, very strong, dense muscles. And the same thing goes for Machamp. I also recommend that you tenderize him. A Bellsprout, yeah, you would think that you can eat a Bellsprout because it's just this cute little guy, right? It's just this little bean sprout looking thing. I think you could chop it up and put in some ramen, have a good time, have that with some Oddish, you know? No, you cannot eat a Bellsprout. Why? It has corrosive spit. You can eat a Weeping Bell. Those are edible because their skin produces a neutralizer of the acid that it is filled with. So you just gotta clean it out of the acid. Also, the neutralizer of the acid on their skin is used as a very strong anti-acid. You can't eat a Victory Bell. That thing is just full of acid. It's a big pitcher plant, just full of acid. People are said to go to the jungles where they're from and never come back. You can't eat the Victory Bell, but the Victory Bell will eat you, so stay away from it. You can't eat a Tentacool. Same thing goes for a Tentacruel. It was stated before in the anime that you can't eat Tentacool or Tentacruel. I'm just gonna sum up the Geodude, Graveler, and Golem thing to, it's a rock. It's a big conscious rock. No, you cannot eat the rock. You can eat a Ponyta. You can also eat a Rapidash. A Slowpoke you can eat, and people do it quite frequently. It's actually a major thing in Alola. People love Slowpoke tails. They secrete this like really nice nectar sort of thing. And Slowpoke tails do fall off, but since, you know, slowpoke don't really feel pain because they're just a little dumb. People don't really see a problem with keeping them as pets and then chopping off their tails whenever they want them for dinner. Because they grow back, and it's not like the guy feels it. I don't know. Seems a little bit morally corrupt. Slowbro, you can eat a slowbro. It's just a slowpoke with a shelter on the back of it. Magnemite, you can't eat. It's a floating metal ball with magnetic stuff in it. No. Same thing goes for Magneton. It's just 3 Magnemites come together. You can't eat that. It's made of steel. I shouldn't even have to answer this question because you can't eat steel in the first place. But here I am telling you that no, you can't eat the flying little steel ball magnet thing. You just can't. Farfetch'd you can eat, and it's so thoughtful that it already comes with a great little like side dish sort of seasoning, which is of course the little spring onion stick it holds. Some braised Farfetch'd with hoisin sauce and sauteed spring onion. It's delicious. A Doduo, yeah, you can eat. It's a very similar answer to the Pidgey, as in it's a bird. Same goes for Dodrio, just a bigger bird. A seal, yeah, you can eat that. Like the Wigglytuff, it's hunted for its pelt, so there's an overabundance of meat that is sold. The same thing goes for the Dugong. People just really like their pelts. They think it looks really nice and classy. I think it's not classy to, skin a beloved pet, but I'm not rich, so what do I know? Grimer and Muck, you can't eat. It's literally just toxic waste. A Grimer goes by or a Muck goes by, it's said that grass and flowers will never grow in their path again. That is how toxic these things are. No matter how much they look like some nice little raspberry sherbet, please, have some common sense. Walk away. A Shelder? You can eat a Shelder. Trust me, you can eat a Shelder. Stuffed Shelders, one of my favorites personally. Cloyster? You can also eat that. Really good for like a family reunion in the backyard. You have a cloister and everyone can just have a little bit of it, because that way you don't have to have a bunch of Shelders. You can just have one really big stuffed cloister. Next up, we have the ghost Pokemon. We have Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. Being ghost Pokemon, it should be obvious that you can't eat them because they're gaseous. But I'm just going to tell you how much you should just stay away from these Pokemon. Not just not eat them, just avoid them entirely. A Ghastly, you can't eat it because it is 95% toxic gas, right? And the other 5% is made up of the souls who died from the gas. I don't know if that means a Ghastly will hover over someone's head and suffocate it to death, or if it's just a poisonous gas that was released and all the souls came together and created a Pokemon. Either way, I don't want to know. I just know that's a little creepy, that's a little poisonous, that's a little dangerous. A Haunter, if it licks you, it will cause the victim of who it licked to shiver until its inevitable death, which will come sooner than later because the Haunter will be zapping your life force, and that was why you're shivering. A Gengar will, admittedly, it's not as bad. It just sort of waits in the shadows for its prey to go by. Alola puts this into perspective because their Pokédex entries about this Pokemon say things such as, "Should you feel yourself attacked by a sudden chill, it is evidence of an approaching Gengar. There is no escaping it. Give up." And that even your home isn't safe. I don't know how to feel about that other than a little bit scared. An Onix is just a big string of rocks. You cannot eat the big string of rocks. A Drowsy, you can eat a Drowsy. You gotta tenderize it. You gotta put it in a stew. You gotta put it in a soup or something because it's a very, very tough meat. Same thing goes for Hypno. It's edible and everything, and you have to tenderize it. It's better in a stew or like a porridge. Actually, Hypno porridge is used to treat kids who suffer from night terrors. Of course, you can eat a Krabby, you can eat a Kingler. They're wonderful to eat. You just sort of boil them and You slap them with butter and some Old Bay seasoning. Just so good. So good. One of my favorite meals. Expensive, but a really good meal. Plus, you don't even have to kill a kingler to eat it. You can just cut off its big claw, because for starters, it's really hard for them to move the big claw in the first place. And there's a lot of meat there, so you're just helping it and helping yourself by feeding yourself. You cannot eat Voltorb. You cannot eat Electrode. People don't even know where they came from. They just showed up one day in a lab when Pokeballs were created, and they explode. They're known as highly dangerous. You can't only not eat them, but you should not go anywhere near them. Execute, despite looking like a bunch of eggs, is actually a bunch of seeds. Still edible, just not eggs. An Executor is also edible. It's actually known as like the walking jungle, but its heads are just like coconut fruit, and they can fall off and then become Execute again, but you can just harvest them. You can eat a Cubone, put it out of its misery of crying for its mom every night. Someone really needs to adopt this Pokemon at all costs, because this is just, when I was reading up on it, I mean, it's just sad. It's called the Lonely Pokemon. That's what it's called. A Marowak is also edible. Will put up more of a fight than a Cubone, though. A Hitmonlee and a Hitmonchan, those are edible. You may be put off a little bit, though, with their very human-like appearance. You can't eat them. Just might weird you out a little bit. You can't eat coughing. It's just a thin balloon filled with toxic gas. You also can't eat a wheezing, because it's just two coughing that joined together in some sort of mutation. Toxins are actually more potent between the two heads. They like expand and decrease in size, and that mixes the toxins together, and it makes it even worse. And you know, there have been odd, rare cases where triplet coughings have been found, so it's 3 heads instead, and those are even more toxic. So if you ever see one of those, just don't even catch the thing. Just run in the opposite direction. Your lungs are not worth the rare Pokemon phenomenon. A Rhyhorn is edible, just has a really thick hide. A Rhydon is also edible, still just has a really thick hide. A Chansey is edible. Nurse Joy won't approve of you eating it, but you can just eat the Chansey egg. Chansey egg is a very nutritional food. It actually is basically like eating a whole meal. It's packed with nutrients. It's great. A doctor will prescribe it. It's very good actually for people in ED recovery. A Tangela is covered in vines that are sort of like a seaweed texture. People like to grind up these vines as like a spice, or use them to like wrap up some sushi. Kangaskhan is edible, but if you're gonna eat the mom, you might as well eat the baby with it, because otherwise that is morally corrupt. Horsey is edible. Its ink is actually used as like a dipping sauce in some cultures. Seadra is also edible. You have to cut off its fin, but it is edible. However, its fin and bones are often used as like a very precious medicinal material. You can eat a Goldeen. It's just not going to taste good. You can also eat a Sea King. It's still just not going to taste good. You can eat a Staryu. You can eat a Starmie. Most people put them on these little sticks and eat them sort of like a lollipop, which I find weird. You just got to make sure that its center is destroyed, because otherwise it will grow back, and that's just going to be a weird thing in your stomach. You can eat a Mr. Mime. I don't know of anyone who would want to, except for maybe the cameraman, who was very excited when I told him that yes, Mr. Mime is edible. But it would just be a really weird thing to do. If you really want to that badly, if your hatred is just that intense, or you're just that weird, technically, yes, you can eat a Mr. Mime. You can eat a Cypher. I think it's best prepared fried, because that's just yummy. But also I'm American, and we say that anything fried is good. A Jinx, you can eat it, but we come to the same just weird thing that we had was the Hitmonchan, the Hitmonlee, and the Mr. Mime, I guess. It's just that it looks human, which just makes it really weird to eat. You can't eat Electabuzz. You cannot eat it. It's not edible. You can't eat a Magmar. It is said to be born inside of a volcano, and it has skin hot enough to melt the flesh off of your body. You can eat a pincer. Again, give it a little stir fry, give it a little bit of a frying thing. Very good, very crunchy texture. Very nice. You can eat a Tauros. A rack of Tauros ribs. I mean, I'm set for the day with that. Magikarp. I mean, it's a Magikarp. You can eat a Magikarp. It's a very common ingredient in most dishes, Magikarp. I'm going to be honest. You can have filet carp, you can have fried carp, you can have carp soup, you can have carp ramen, you can have like carp noodles, anything you want. Magikarp is just a go-to for everyone. A Gyarados, however, so yeah, you can eat it, but for starters, that's just going to be a lot of meat. I mean, those things are gigantic. It's really hard to like catch one in the first place even. But also there's the problem that Gyarados is thought to induce rage. So you don't want to eat that. There was a town that once ate it and they just went up in a riot and everything was burnt to the ground by the next morning. Lapras is now edible. Back in the 90s, it was endangered. So it was protected by the Endangered Species Act. Back in like 2017, it became not endangered anymore. So they took it off the list and you can eat it now. You can't eat a Ditto because it has a constant changing cell structure and that's just not good for you. And you can't eat an Eevee because it has an unstable genetic coding and apparently that can neither cause or progress cancer. A Vaporeon is very, very close to water. Its cells are 95% the same as a water molecule, so you can just make soup out of it. A Jolteon, you can eat a Jolteon. You just can't eat its lungs because that's where the electric storage organ is. But other than that, it's fine. However, a Flareon, you can't eat a Flareon. For starters, it has an internal, like, sort of flame reactor thing. And I think its skin, if I'm correct, can reach up to 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, just its skin alone. So no, no, just like the Magmar, you can't eat that. How would you even cook something that hot? It would just be raw. And for second, you would severely burn your whole esophagus, everything. You would have inside burns, you would have outside burns. No, just don't eat the Flareon. Keep it as a nice fluffy little pet. Porygon, no. It's a normal type. You can't eat it though because it is man-made and made entirely out of computer programming. You can eat an Omanite. They make something similar to escargot in Kalos with an Omanite. Same thing goes for an Omastar, it's just a bigger version. You can eat a Kabuto. You can eat a Kabutops. They're fine. I mean, none of these Pokemon are really recommended. The Omanite, the Omastar, the Kabuto, the Kabutops, the Aerodactyl. Why? Because they're fossil Pokemon. They were extinct. They're no longer extinct. They were brought back from the dead, from amber and fossils. So you really shouldn't eat them, especially because some of the Omastars and the Omanites just stay alive. And you can find them just alive in places, centuries of years old, so they could just have diseases from millions of years ago, and we're not equipped to fight that in our bodies. You can eat a Snorlax. It's the non-recommended way to get through a Snorlax that's blocking your path. The recommended way, Pokeflute. Non-recommended way, just sort of eat your way through the middle of it. You can eat an Articuno. You can eat a Zapdos. You can eat a Moltres. Not recommended. Not recommended because there's only one of each. It's a legendary Pokemon. You're not even going to find it. And people are going to be really mad at you if you do. Dratini is edible. Dragonair is edible. Dragonite is edible. But the fishermen won't be happy with you for catching and eating these Pokemon because they're like the protectors of the sea. Dragonite are known to rescue crews of sunken ships who are drowning just because of how nice they are. You can't eat a Mewtwo because it shares the same DNA as Mew, and Mew has the genetic coding or the DNA of every single Pokemon in existence in its DNA. And as we know, not all of the Pokemon are edible, and so if Mew just has all of them, inside of him. That's no, not edible. And that means Mewtwo isn't edible because they share the same DNA, right? So that was the Kanto menu of Pokemon. And now I'm going to go over to the Johto region and I'm going to see what they've got on their menu. I'm not going to be a Pokemon master, I'm going to be a Pokemon chef.